Hey, good afternoon. It's Friday, August 9th, and I am that developer dad, and it's the afternoon. And this morning, we got a lot of the save NPC logic for in the NPC Access component written for SQL Server. So let's go to the screen share, and before we dive into the code, I do want to talk a little bit about some of these classes that you're seeing me create in these last couple of videos. And a lot of them look really similar to each other, and some of you who may not have been doing this for a while might be asking, why is he repeating himself so very much? And so I just before I started the stream, I created a very simple diagram of what any typical application looks like. So we've got this, and we've got our clients or the presentation layer, like our web app, our console applications, APIs, whatever. Doesn't matter, we can lump all of those things together. It could be a Blazor app, it could be a Maui application, it could be some kind of dotNet Flutter or a React or Angular or Vue, or anything that you could dream up can live up in here. And the information that we need on the client about our whatever it is that we're going to display, of course, includes those things, those properties, those attributes of whatever object we're showing. But we also need all the other stuff. Like maybe we want to change the label, like have the label be variable, or we want to present some drop downs, so we need that information and so on. So the view models that live up, or the models of the views that will live in our clients, probably look significantly different from the models that our logic needs to work with. And I've written a lot of software over the years, and I've often made the mistake of, especially when I was more junior or less experienced, of having my data classes either be driven by the client or the storage layer, rather than what's needed within the scope of whichever layer I am in. I got into the habit, and I stayed there for a long time, of designing my database tables and then designing the classes that would go throughout the application from those database tables. And I ended up with primary key values getting business value, and that's never a good thing. And that led to all kinds of problems when it came time to make changes to my application or fix issues because I had made a bad design decision or an incorrect assumption or what have you, or the needs of the business changed. And then I got into service-based development, and things got a little bit better, but I would do things that felt like the right idea at the time and have all of my DTOs declared in here. So business objects, and they'd be shared throughout the entire stack. I'd model my tables off of the business objects, which is a little better than doing it the other way around, but still not great, especially when you've got a whole team of report designers that are relying on the data being in specific formats and their needs and so on. And it's slightly more flexible, but it's, again, if somebody comes in here and changes this, it's going to break the entire stack. So I got that beaten out of me by experience and teachers at architecture courses. And so now I've come to start treating each of these layers and the classes that live within those layers as discrete services. And as I observed when I would integrate with third-party services, like let's say I am building an e-commerce solution and we're using the FedEx API or the USPS API or UPS or DHL or whoever to take care of our shipping. And so I need to call into their APIs for shipping labels or to register orders, get how much it's going to cost to ship, etc. Hey, what's up, Nyan? I found that I would have to create a model that represents the API model. So let's edit the text in here. So API model. And then I'd have my local business model. So the local app model. And I'd have to have translations between those. So I would do all of my local in-application work against the local app model. And then when I need to send that information to whoever, I would just translate. So let's add an arrow here. Where's my shapes button? Here we are. And I need a double-headed arrow because this can go both ways. And let's add a little bit of text. Transformation code. And let's make that text smaller because it doesn't need to be 16 point. And for that, we have to go here and go shrinky, shrinky, shrink. Oh, we'll go a little bigger than it is. Here we go. So we'd have the transformation code here between the two. And then it didn't matter what FedEx or UPS or USPS or whatever the remote API was doing inside their API. They could change their code till their heart's content as long as they didn't alter their contracted models. And I could do whatever the heck I wanted to do inside my application and logic and my local app model, as long as I always translated to and then back from that remote model. And that gave me an awful lot of freedom in my code to make changes as needed. I could iterate on those services independently of anything else. So with this, what I'm doing, instead of having one big honking set of application models, one model to rule them all, which frequently turns into one model ruled by them all. What I'm doing here is I'm going to grab some more shapes. And I've got physical definition. And I'm going to shrinkify that text because that's way too big for what we want to do. So we've got our physical definition. And it's tightly coupled to the storage model. All right. And then I've got my resource model. Which is loosely coupled to the application model. By translation. And then finally up here at the top, I've got my presentation model. And I need to make that a little wider. Now, knowledge of models may only move down. And I need a big fat arrow. So give me a big 3D arrow. And I'm going to edit the text. Knowledge of models, one layer at a time. And this guy, we're going to pull him down here, and then I'm going to rotate him. Floop. And we're going to make him a little shorter. He doesn't need to be that tall. And oh, nope. Nope. Don't do that. No, no, no. So that means the code in our presentation layer knows about the public application models. Doesn't have any awareness of what's below. And I actually want to add another set of arrows. Yeah, let's do that. And we're just going to go edit the text, knows about, and we're going to shrinkify that. So let's go like this. And I'm going to do this. And we're going to scooch it up so it's a little shorter. We'll make a copy. And I'm going to shrink it a little more. There we go. Yeah. Here we go. Good, I like that. And I want to move this guy up just a scooch. Just a little more. I'm going to copy and paste. And there we go. And I want to turn these green. Where is my shape coloring? Shape fill, here we go. And let's break out some phthalo green. No, that's a little too dark. Let's go with some nice sap green there. So there we go. So our presentation layer can call into the application logic, but doesn't know anything about what's going on below. Similarly, our application logic can call into resource, and within the application logic, I am including both managers, which orchestrate the actual logic components, and resource access. But the application layer knows about the public aspects of the resource access, and the resource access has intimate knowledge about the resource that it's been coded to access. And all of these different models allow us to make changes within the areas that they control. And I think we need a little bit more information here. Presentation model. Let's bump that to that and go shrinky dinky doo. And we'll add a new line. Let's make these a little taller too. Narrower and taller. And let's pull this down. These guys can stay as they are. Now, no, I need them to be taller too. So let's do this and this. Get some vertical separation there. Narrow and taller. Just ever so slightly. There we go. All right, so now we need some arrows. And I'm going to glue these guys back together because they move in lockstep with each other. Now, let's grab some shapes. Arrows. Ohms. Give me another arrow. Ohms. Ohms. And ohms. Now let's make these bigger. I want some fatter, chonkier arrows. So where is our shape options? Here we go. Outline. Weight. Let's go up to 3-point for those guys. Those are nice and chonky. And I also want those to be, I think, green. Nope. Red? Yeah. Red arrows mean it owns the model. And then we're going to use green arrows. Are we going to use green arrows? Yes, we are going to use green arrows. For awareness of. Now let's grab these guys. And first, let's go with that nice rich green. We'll make these guys slightly, well, we'll go with the same chonk level, but we're going to dot them. There we go. And then, of course, we've got our transformation code. Copy. Paste. Let's run this guy over here. We'll attach him here. Grab that end. There. Copy, paste. Grab the endpoint. Drop it down there. Grab the endpoint. Drop it here. And you get the picture. C, V, what the heck? Let's do one more. Oh, that's a tight squeeze. That's a super tight squeeze. There. Now let's get all of these guys lined up. Just because if we don't, it's going to bother me. Align the centers. There we go. And these ones, let's color code these as well. And I'm going to use hack. Grab, 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 grab. And let's go with a orange for those. And we'll go ahead and make them chonky. just because I'm feeling silly. Okay, so our transformation code, that's owned by the client is responsible for translating the presentation model to and from the application model. The application logic is responsible for translating between its local idiom and whatever definition is in place for our resource model. The resource access is responsible for translating between its public contract and its internal model of the physical resource itself. And what that lets us do is we can make changes anywhere in here, and the effect of that change is limited to the area that we're changing, maybe its model, and if the public model changes, responsibility for updating the translation on that rests with whoever's consuming it. And that very much limits how much code we have to change when we want to iterate or make an improvement or fix a mistake we made or whatever. It limits it to a small handful of our code artifacts rather than having to go in and tear everything down and build it back up again. So that is why I've defined row model, resource access model, townsperson, and view model. I've got 4 different models for the same thing in this simple application right now. And we've already seen how I can make a change to the townsperson without impacting the way it behaves in the client. And I can make whatever kind of changes I want to make to that client model without impacting any logic anywhere else in my application. And that's a very powerful thing. Let's get into some code. So right here on screen right now, we have my NPC Access SqlProvider. This is the version of the contract, the NPC Access contract. All we care about here is that we can send an NPC Access model into one of these components, and it'll save it to a database, and later on we'll add some code to get a list of the NPCs we've created, and then we'll be able to view and edit and resave and all of that stuff. But right now, we just need a way to stuff the character into a place to keep it. We'll worry about pulling it out and displaying it again later on, probably next week. And it returns a task of type integer. Now, if we lived in a perfect world, and every time I call save NPC, it succeeds, and it either gives me back the ID of that NPC, because it already existed, or it gives me back the ID for the newly stored non-player character object, great. But we don't live in a perfect world. Hey, how's it going, Raider? Foolcap has raided me. Very interesting. This is exciting. This is my first raid. How y'all doing? I hope I'm not too boring for you, because I'm not playing video games. I am writing code to help me play Dungeons and Dragons more easily. And it's not pretty. It's not got fancy graphics or anything like that. I'm much more interested in the C# code. So we don't live in a perfect world, and stuff breaks all the time. We get exceptions, we get error messages. The SQL server's offline because I forgot to start the service. There's a network outage, you name it. And, oh, right on. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you. INPF Nefmer TV is just telling me that he streamed NGU Idle and that they're gonna like what I'm doing. So I hope I don't disappoint. So back to this. SQL will throw exceptions. And those are basically error messages that if we don't handle them, they're going to crash our application. Now, we don't want to put a try-catch block around everything and just throw it out the stack, because that chews up bytes in memory. It spins the CPU way more, especially when we use exceptions, than if we do something a little bit less heavy with them. So what I want to do is, instead of just returning a task of type integer, I want to create a new class that can carry basically any type and error information with it. And I'm going to put this not in the Game Tools framework, but in the That Development Dad framework code. Because this is a concept that I have written over and over and over again. And it makes me crazy to have to type it in every time I want it. Hey, thanks for the follow, Vicky. And FoolCap. Wow. Hey, I think y'all make numbers 49 and 50. I could be mistaken, but y'all might be 49 and 50, which, big whoop. Hey, that's awesome. All right. So I'm sick of writing this code every time I need it. So let's add a folder. And I'm going to call it wrappers. Add a new class. And I believe I called it, when I was writing the description for my stream, I think I decided I'm going to call it OpResult. Because result is a word that's used all over the place in dotNet. And OpResult, op is short for operation. I'm going to make this public. And it is going to have a private list of string errors. And we'll go ahead and use an implicit constructor for it. And public read-only list, nope, collection of string errors will return errors. I'm targeting dotNet 8 as read-only of string. And public was successful, and that needs to be a bool. And it's going to be just a simple function that returns errors.any equals false. And that is not all that I need. Public void add error string error message errors.add error message. There. So there's OpResult. And oh, no. I typed that myself. I am actually not running Copilot. I'm doing this straight out of my head. I used to be using an extension called Codium, and it's sort of like a free version of GitHub Copilot. And it works really quite nicely in Visual Studio Code, but when I moved over to Visual Studio, which has IntelliSense and intelligent code completion built into it, that's not AI driven, Codium and the built-in stuff for Visual Studio were getting in a fight, and I was seeing the helper text superimposed on itself, so I just disabled Codium, and I've been going straight out of my brain. So we've got that, and so from here I need to public class OpResult of T inherits OpResult and public result T we're going to make that nullable, and that's all we really got to do. You know what? I'm going to override T result. T result equals result, and I'm going to leave that externally settable. Represents the result of an operation invoked on an external code. Operation invoked on external code. The externality of that code does not have to be a physical separation. Use of this pattern is valid for calling from component to component within the same process space. And let's spell the correctly. Now, let's come down here. Extends the basic OpResult to allow instances to carry the expected value in the case of a operation with a return value. Save. Now, what do we do with this? Well, right here we're returning a public async task of type int, and if this thing throws an exception, that's going to fall all the way out my stack and either give me an error screen in the Blazor app, or it'll crash the process if it's not caught, or what have you, and I don't want that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the contract. And yeah, you should avoid changing contracts, but I think that rule should only apply when we're changing contracts to code that already exists in a production environment somewhere. So I'm going to change this from a task of int to a task of OpResult of type int. And I didn't like that because it doesn't know what an OpResult is. Zookeeper, bite it. NPC Access probably doesn't know about my framework. So let's fix that. Add project reference. Oh, no, it does not. So that developer dad dot framework. There we go. And let's say OK. And now, boom. We now have awareness of what an OpResult is. And let's pop into here. And this needs to become an OpResult of type int. And I probably have to do the same thing here. Nope, I just have to add the using statement. And instead of this, return new OpResult with a capital R. Of int. There we go. Save that. Yeah, I like it. And now that we've got that set up, let's build our exception handling. And let's get rid of this. I can kill off that to-do. OpResult of int is result equals new OpResult of int. Oh, it needs an empty constructor. Let's go to the definition of that. Public, let's just do this. T equals null. Result equals null. Doesn't like that because it could be a non-nullable type. Let's just use default of type T. There. Do we have any compiler warnings that it's complaining about here? We do not. Good. I've already got plenty of compiler warnings, and I don't want to add more. Now, because we've declared our result variable up here, I don't need to do this icky thing that I'm doing down here anymore. And I can get rid of my step 4. Oh, 9, I agree. I'm a long way to go before I can deploy this to a cloud hosting environment, but I do intend to push this thing up into Azure, and then I can show it off and start taking people's money in return for a fairly generously set limit of usage. Catch, okay. Let's pull that code up into our try. Try if model else, yeah. Result dot result equals model dot NPC ID. Save that. And we can get rid of these extra bits of empty space. Okie dokie. and string error message. And string error ID equals GUID.new GUID.toString. Error message equals interpolation and could not save the NPC. I do need to catch the exception. If this persists, contact support with code error ID. And anybody that's told to contact support with an error ID is just going to send an email, because I am not calling out a GUID over the phone. If this persists, contact support with code error ID. And then I am going to logger.log error. And let's see here. E.message. Yes, I am just creating a random GUID as an error ID, and there's a reason I'm using a random GUID. And it's because I'm going to new, not a new exception, error ID equals error ID, exception type equals e.getType.name, and I have to invoke getType. Exception time is datetime.now. And let's tidy this up. I don't like that. New. Add the semicolon now to make that stop complaining. And I also want to add site is name of NPC Access SQL Server, SqlProvider, dot save NPC, And it doesn't like the colons because that's not the right syntax. And yeah, exception type. Timestamp UTC, and we'll use UTC now. Okay, so we've got a correlation ID. We've got the kind of exception that happened. The message is getting logged. Timestamp in UTC, and where it happened. And I think that's good enough. And then result.add error, error message. Save. And you're right about stuffing that GUID into the message. That's crappy. I don't like it. Let's pop up to OpResult. Definition. And instead of a list of strings, what if I did it as a dictionary of GUID and string? Do that. Was successful, errors.any equals false, good. Read-only collection of string errors, no. Can we do a read-only dictionary? Not with a capital I, we can't. GUID and string, good. GUID and string. Okay, so now on my UI, I can just emit the list of the error text. Now let's pop in here and get rid of that interpolation so that we're not polluting that. But we'll be able to correlate any errors that get thrown out to our log messages, and then how to get that code or the ID to the user when they go to send a support message. That's a problem for future me. But I do need to come into OpResult and GUID error ID, string error message, errors, error ID equals error message. There we go. Cool. So now we're going to be able to report those issues as they come up. They'll run out through to wherever we capture them. We're logging them at the source. Oh, come on, Rob. Learn to type. Here we go. That's a lowercase d. There's that. Add error. What are you complaining about? Oh, because it's a string. Dopey, dopey, dopey. There we go. Pardon me. And that looks like it's gonna work for me. Let's clean up our stuff and things up here. We've removed and sorted. I don't know why they sort like this, because I would much rather do System, then Microsoft, then my own stuff. And oh, that comes down here as well. Here we go. That's much better. So we've got system namespaces, Microsoft namespaces. If I were using any third-party stuff, I'd be putting the third-party things in, and then finally my own thing. Or rather, application local things here. And even though that developerdad.framework project is in this solution right now, once it gets to a point where I'm happy with it, I'm actually going to pull it out of this project and turn it into a NuGet package. All right, I think this is in okay enough shape for us to try integrating. So let's close these things. Model extensions, NPC Access, NPC row model, all of that stuff. And we shut down the framework, and we got to go back into the managers. Before we do that, I want to make a commit. Save NPC, method initial coding is complete. Doesn't mean it's tested, doesn't mean it works. It just means that the code is written. Let's integrate into the manager. And for this, I need to go into the Townsperson Manager in here. And let's go to iTownsperson Manager. So we've got generate Townsperson from options. It's pulling in a dictionary. I hope nothing else is using that. Get NPC options, save Townsperson. Returns the location of the saved data. Could be a URI or a file path. No, it doesn't. This is going to become a task OpResult of int oh, come on, Rob. There we go. Returns a task with an op result carrying the ID of the townsperson. That was persisted. Save. Int NPC ID this will become a task of OpResult containing a townsperson, and I'm not going to mess with list townspersons yet. This is actually going to remain not implemented as well. So let's go down to where there's rule set access, card deck, dice bag. There's creation rules, generate townsperson from options. This should be made obsolete. This version is going away. Use the townsfolk user options instead. And yes, even though I'm the only developer and only consumer of any of these classes, I do want to use these obsolete things because I'm trying to do a whole lot of different stuff, and I don't want to fall down a rabbit hole of refactoring all of the things that use this deprecated version of that method. I don't want to do that now. I want to focus on what I'm trying to get done. I may also replace this dictionary of string and string arrays with a more strongly typed option source class. But I feel like that's going to vary from one system to another or one rule set to another, so I don't want to mess with that just yet. List townspersons, let's not monkey with it, because I haven't altered any of that stuff yet. Public townsperson, load townsperson, this we need to change to a async task OpResult like so. And we need to fix all the little funny things. Boom. And I think that's set. Yes, I know it lacks await operators. This becomes task op result of type int. And this looks pretty good. Now, how do we implement this? Well, the very first thing we got to do is going back to this stuff here. We're living in here in this application logic area, and the townsperson is our application model. So we need to transform this application model into the resource model. So, NPC Access model, storage model, equals townsperson dot to NPC Access model. And that doesn't exist yet. Internal operations, template worker. Add class model transformers. Model transformers, yep. .cs. This is going to be internal, but we do need to make it static. And this will become a public static NPC access model to NPC access model. This townsperson app. App is for app model. Return model. Save. Public static townsperson to app model. This NPC access model resource. Var app equals new Townsperson, return the app model. Not gonna sweat this right now. This, on the other hand, I don't want to plumb the NPC ID. Definition. Public int ID. Yuck. I'm going to make it a net. Okay. Don't like it, but I feel like I need to if I'm going to be able to plumb that all the way out to the UI and get the ID back when we come back in. All right, model transformers. Model.NPCID equals app.id. Model.UserID equals app.UserID. I'm gonna need it. User ID is an int. Townsperson. Public int. User ID. Get init. I feel like I should probably do some hash mapping or create some sort of immutable thing that I can push down into the browser that I can then rehydrate. And if it's different from what I pushed in or pushed out to the browser when it comes back, I should throw an error message at that point. To do, find a way to make sure these values don't get tampered with while they're sitting in a client browser. Again, problem for future me. I'm just making sure I know that I remember that it needs to be done. Model dot species name equals app dot species dot name. Or is it just species? And I think it's just species on that model as well. That's right. Okay. Model dot vocation equals app dot vocation dot name. And var NPC data equals it sort of will be-ish a standalone app, but because I do intend to deploy it to a cloud at some point, if it starts to get enough pressure on it, I've already identified where my fracture points will be, and that's going to make pulling those pieces out of the monolithic deployment that I create into smaller discrete services. And I'll be able to do that in like the span of like a day or so, as opposed to having to do a whole bloody refactor project because I've tied everything together all super tight and spaghetti like. It's just sort of, yes, LLM will be one of those external services. I'm not going to try and permanently host a virtual machine or a container for Phi 3 up in Azure, because that's going to cost way more money than I want it to. I think at the start, I'm just going to use the Azure OpenAI service for that, and I'll do a pay-as-you-go type thing rather than like a dedicated, always-on virtual machine or what have you. GPT-4 Omni is either equal to 3.5 Turbo or perhaps even less expensive than 3.5 Turbo at this point. Microsoft just released 4.0 as a usable model some time ago. Yeah. Well, Phi 3 Mini, yeah, I'm running that locally on my Windows laptop. That's how I'm doing all of the LLM stuff right now. But when I go to host this thing in the cloud, I'm going to want to probably just leverage Azure OpenAI services with either the 3.5 Turbo model, like you said, or the new GPT 4.0 Mini, depending on how capable it is. Obviously, I have to do some testing, and I can flip back and forth between those models relatively easily without messing with too much code. All right, NPC data equals app dot. Do we have a serialize? I honestly, I haven't looked into it too much. Serialize for output. Oh yeah, we're going to serialize for output. Let's make sure that's the right thing I'm calling. Let's go to the definition of that. JSON utilities.get clean JSON. Yeah, that's what I want. Cool. So serialize for output is the NPC data. Let's do it this way. Model dot character data. Character details. Let's pop back here. And I really hate that I'm doing this. Public bool is public. Get init. I don't want to have to plumb all of this stuff all the way out to the client, but I feel like I need to. Let's save it. I could probably get rid of user ID on the Townsperson at some point, because the Townsperson, well, no. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Like, a user should only ever be able to edit their own characters that they've created, but I do want to give people the ability, namely me, the ability to create some NPC characters and make them publicly available, primarily just for sample purposes or what have you. Yeah. These ID, these init values. All right. Model transformers, we're good. I'm not going to mess with this yet. That's a next week problem. So let's come out to the Townsperson Manager. So storage model equals townsperson.to NPC access model. OpResult of type int. Save result equals await NPC access. I don't have an NPC access dependency yet. Dot save NPC storage model. Boop. And what am I doing? Return save result. Here we go. Yep. I'm going to be saving them to the database that I was working on writing the entity framework code here when you rate it in. So NPC access, I need to define what NPC access is. Let's come up here. Private, read-only, NPC access, NPC access. Boop. What are you complaining about? Describes okay, does not implement interface, load townsperson. Okay, let me go fix up that interface method real quick. It's going to be int NPC ID. Save it. Are you still complaining up here? Nope, good. All right, so we've got our NPC access. Now I have to get it in here. Oh, I almost did it stupid. Let's do this. And so I've got my Townsfolk Manager. I really, really, really don't like the idea of, well, no, that part's fine. NPC access, NPC access. Now, if I try to spin up my app right now, it's going to vomit all over me. Because it has no idea how to resolve NPC access to my SQL thingy. And this is one of the things I don't care for with the new dotNet Core dependency injection is that it pushes, or it creates a temptation and a really easy way to push knowledge about all of the internal workings of your application out to the hosting process layer. And I don't like that. I feel like the Townsperson Manager should be told how to obtain or where to get its dependencies, but not necessarily be handed the dependencies. But I guess that's really hair splitty. So let's come into Dependency Helper. And do I have Microsoft.NET Framework, SQL Server, System Formats, ASN1, I don't even know what that is. And Azure Identity. And is it iService Collection? I think it is. Public, static, iService Collection. Use NPC SQL Server Access. I want to unpin that so I can see everything that it's telling me to do. And stop that. Configuration. Configuration. Return to services. String. And user data connection string equals configuration dot get connection string user data if user data cn stop that. If string dot is null or white space throw new configuration exception argument exception. Argument null exception. Could not access the expected connection string user data from the supplied configuration. And here, I'm going to just throw an exception. If that connection string is not supplied, I want the app to die. Because this happens when it spins up, and this is unlikely to fall over when the application is actually running. So, services dot add scoped for NPC Access. What are you complaining about? Scope service of the type specified in tservice to the specified iService collection. Yeah, that's good. And now I need an implementation factory. So iServiceProvider, NPC Access. All right. SP. Return new. NPC Access SQL provider with user data CN. What are you complaining about? OBS. Oh, we also need the logger. We'll get there. Calm down. iLogger factory. Log factory. Equals sp.get required service. Logger factory. Log factory dot create logger of NPC Access SQL provider. Boop. iLogger NPC logger equals that. And what order do those need to go in? NPC logger, user data connection, boop. What are you complaining about? Fine. NPC Access, SQL provider. Everything's happy. We've added our scoped. That's probably going to throw up all over me because that'll probably require a scope. And if it does, we'll solve that problem when we get to it. Return services. Good. Pop this out. Pin it for just a second. And I want to see if I can get the DI to work today. I'm not going to wire up a save button today because it's Friday afternoon and I want to start my weekend, and the sun is shining for the first time in I don't know how long. And if my grass is dry, I'm going to try to mow some of my lawn. Um, I don't expect to be able to get all of it done because it's 90 degrees outside with the humidity, and I will die because it's been a very, very long time since I've been able to mow the lawn. Let's add references to the NPC Access and the SQL Server provider for that NPC Access right now. And this is one of the things I don't like about dotNet Dependency Injection, because my Blazor client shouldn't have any knowledge of the dependencies of the dependencies of the dependencies. That makes me crazy. It just sets you up to inject these dependencies into things that don't need them as you're adding new features and so on, and you end up with a big tangled mess of yuck. I do not enjoy it. App settings, JSON, let's come out to program. Create services. Let's go down here. Web app builder, add scope, rule set access, has all that stuff. Add scoped, Townsperson Manager. We're going to have to add our boop. Hey, thanks. I will see you later. I'm just going to add this DI stuff and see if it's working and identify what I have to start with on Monday from here. Dot. That is a service collection. Good. Dot use NPC. What are you complaining about? Services.use NPC SQL Server. This is public static iService collection. This iService collection configuration. Yeah. I'm gonna need the configuration too. Builder equals set up configuration builder. Private static web application builder, set up configuration web application builder, app builder, return builder, and I need to pass in builder.configuration. Let's go all the way up. Using game tools dot NPC Access, using game tools dot NPC Access dot SQL Server. Save that. It can now see my extension method. Builder dot configuration. Dot set base path. Do the things. All right. builder dot configuration dot use, not user secrets, add where's app settings, add key per file JSON stream. I'm not adding an OpenAI client. Add a JSON file? Do I have to give it a name? I'll bite it. Path relative to the base file, app settings.json. .json. Now there's some environment stuff. Okay, environment.isDevelopment. Yeah, I'm not concerned about that stuff. Oh, gosh. Let's come into app settings.json. Okay. Logging. Connection strings. I believe it's just user data. And I'm gonna grab this. And I'm gonna copy it. Paste it. Excuse me. And I'm going to replace this with the actual connection string off screen. But let's... One more thing I got to do up in services. And let's come in here, go to definition. Let's go builder dot logging dot add console. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with all that stuff. I'm just gonna send a basic vanilla logging thing. Builder.logging.add console. Cool. Let's save it. And one last thing. I just want to see if it spins up and enters my dependency helper. All right. So we got that configuration. We got all kinds of configuration sections. Holy cow. Path, allowed hosts, all this stuff. Yeah. Here's all this rubbish. Endpoint, common program files. That's nice. Let's come down here. Configuration, add JSON file. Do I have an access to? Builder dot configuration dot connection strings. That connection string, user data, Good, it read it. Perfect. Now, step into create services. We've added our console logging, scoped. Step into this one. User data just says haha nope. Good. Add scoped NPC access, providing a logger. All right. Let's run it. General Kenobi, I've been expecting you. Give me a Potter. Look at that. Okay, app still runs. On Monday, we're adding a Save NPC button to the details page. Until then, y'all have yourselves a great weekend. I hope the weather behaves, both for me and for you, wherever you are. I could use a break from the constant rain, and so could my lawn. And my body wants exercise. It's been raining for like 6 weeks here. So I'm going to go try and do some stuff. And then later I'm going to eat pizza and drink beer. So do something fun over the weekend. Look after your brains, look after your bodies, and we'll hit this again on Monday morning. Until then, take care of yourselves.